So hello everyone, I'm Virgile Perret, project leader for the Observatoire de la Finance based in Geneva, where I have the pleasure to manage the Global Prize on Ethics and Trust in Finance. And it's always a great pleasure to welcome and to speak with the laureates of this prize. Now we just completed the 10th edition of the competition, which was running between 2024 and 2025. And I have with me today Micael Veras dos Santos, speaking from Brussels in Belgium, and he won the first prize ex aequo of this 10th edition. Micael wrote a very interesting paper on an important issue, namely on trust and societal construct in European capital market growth. So, Micael, thank you for being with us. First questions I would like to ask you: what motivated you to discuss the issue of trust and societal construct in European capital markets growth?
Thanks a lot, Virgil, for the introduction and for the question. Of course, it's an honor to be here talking about this very important topic, and it's an honor for me again to have won this award. Of course, what motivated really for me to talk about this topic was first of all an element that is very close to my heart, which is the lack of proximity that people specifically from my generation have from finance, the distrust they have in finance, and this dialogue that public authorities have around the need to increase financial literacy. I look at the topic, I thought that the picture was not well portrayed, and that the financial literacy was only a part of the puzzle that needed to be solved. So my research and my paper really, my motivation came because of that. I saw that the picture was not completed, that there was a part of the information that was missing, that I thought it was very important to really provide a full overview on why European citizens are so far from capital markets.
Excellent, thank you. It's true, your essay provides a very good overview of that problematic, very excellent overview. It is well known that Europe's capital markets are relatively underdeveloped in comparison to those of the United States. What are the factors that explain this gap, and why is it a challenge for Europe?
I think it's really related, and I tried to explain that in my paper. I think it's a little bit about the way that society has been built in the EU and in the US. And when I hear the public authorities talking about this topic, often I hear a comparison that we need to be like the US. But it is of my opinion that you cannot be like someone if you don't have the same pillars and bases as someone else, right? And I think that the society that was built in the EU does not share the same principles and societal basis as the US does, which has positively or negatively affect that. I'm being very neutral, and my paper is very neutral on that. I just expose those differences, where for example, in US, you have a more absent figure of state, of course, in regards to topics like pensions, social protection, and all of these things that makes it feel like citizens are responsible of their own future, which pushes them to take more risk and to invest, because if they don't have any other option than taking risk, right? Whilst in the EU, we have built societies that are very, very great and big on social security. Most of European member states have very, very, very like old and let's say cohesive. I don't want to say cohesive because it seems like they are solid, because they're a little bit falling apart. There's a lot of pension systems that have been built in most of the European member states that are funded by the state, of course, and the taxpayers. And because of that, we have, of course, more protections in the EU. But having more protections also means, in the same time, again, not saying it's bad or wrong, that we feel more protected. So we naturally develop a more risk aversion profile, where we are more averse to taking risks and to actually chasing something that is naturally given to us. The mentality is a little bit like, okay, why do I have to take the risks? The state will be there for me to protect me in my future, in my retirement, in my pension. And the reality is that the pension systems are collapsing a little bit in major European member states, and there are solutions that are needed, of course, to address those challenges.
Right, right. So then, in this context, what reforms could revitalize Europe's capital market? And should we copy the US model?
That's actually the very, I think that's the key question, where everything really where the real debate should take place. Because again, as I said, if we have, I think, a different pillar and a different basis, I still believe a lot in democracy, right? And democracy has as options, and we as Democrats, and when we vote, we choose the option that we want for our future. So if the, let's say, the pillars and the societal tissue and DNA of Europe is different than the US, it's because democratically we have done those choices, right? And we have to accept what does that mean. And perhaps we will not ever be able to be like the US because of those same reasons, because we want something else for us and for our future, and that's fine. So under these circumstances, I think it would be very naive to assume that we can replicate the market in the US. So perhaps what we need to do actually is to understand how Europeans look at investing and looking actually even beyond capital markets, because the economy can thrive not only based in capital markets, right? For example, I have this discussion a lot with colleagues of mine from my generation, being from the south of Europe. A lot of people that work in the financial industry that I know today, they have €0 invested in capital markets because for them it's more profitable to invest at this stage in real estate back home in their own countries, because that brings more profits long term. But at the same time, as you know, they are generating mortgages, but Europe has been very conservative on the securitization measures that after the 2008 crisis. So this is also something that is not being used by, let's say, or leveraged by capital markets, because banks today are not being able to package those mortgage and sell them to the market as financial products. So I think we need to look at the behavior of consumers and really ask ourselves the question: do we want to be like the US? Can we be like the US? Most likely, in my opinion, if we keep as we are today, the answer is no, and we need to first accept that, and based on that, then provide other types of solutions and provide other types of investment vehicles that really talk to the art of Europeans. And that maybe that's not capital markets, maybe that's something else, but it's possible to bring that into capital markets at the end of the day. We just need to make sure how. Also, another very element of importance is, of course, tax, right? The tax regime, we have to say, that is not very beneficial today in most of countries in Europe to invest in capital markets. They could be more advantages, let's say, specifically on the moment that we are facing a moment, let's say, of crisis of some of the pension systems, for example. So there should be double down on incentives to actually invest and to save into pensions. And what we see, unfortunately, is that member states are even going the other opposite direction. Well, you had very, let's say, member states like, for example, Belgium, that was seen as a very good country to invest in stock markets, because it's a very heavy tax country. If you look at the volumes of tax on the OECD, Belgium is quite high. But if on the capital markets, that was kind of one of the shop stops where you could actually save on taxes a little bit, because there were no taxes on capital gains in Belgium. But even there, Belgium now introduces a 10% capital gains. Up to 30% is there is speculation on the market. So, I feel a little bit of imbalance between those things, between the ambition of member states, the social system that gets bigger and bigger and needs tax money, taxpayers to kind of sustain it. And that's kind of a catastrophe recipe for the long term, in my view.
Thank you for this insight, Michael. And lastly, a more personal question, more general question. How important has ethics been in the choices you made in your personal career?
Well, that's a very deep question and philosophical at a certain extent. Well, I always kind of, I think, without knowing, I always been ethical, just part of the values that I believe in. I believe a lot on the values of honesty and transparency. And I think that translates into ethics on the practices. When you do your job, you want to do the right thing. So for me, it always came as a natural. But I understand that it might not be the same for everyone. So I think it's very important to still today reinforce the value and the importance of ethics, and even beyond ethics, because ethics generates trust, right? It's kind of trust is kind of a consequence of being ethical, right? When you act for the good, for the common good, when you act out of honesty, when you act out of transparency and truth, I think that trust becomes like a byproduct of that, right? And trust is, as I said in my paper as well, to really for the sustainability of capital markets in the long term, it's a really important element to have, and a very important component that needs to be part of the capital markets and finance overall.
Thank you very much, Micael, for these very interesting insights, and congratulations again for your award for this Global Prize Ethics and Trust in Finance.
Thank you. Thank you very much.